Summer was a rideshare driver, but not just any driver. She became known on social media as the hot Uber driver after a video of her smiling with headphones on, calmly navigating Los Angeles traffic, went viral on TikTok. Since then, she'd been a topic in online forums, passenger chat groups, and Instagram comment sections. Everyone talked about her serene beauty, her flawless lipstick even on scorching days, and the calm, direct way she treated everyone in her car. But to her, that was just noise. What mattered was the firm grip on the steering wheel, hitting her daily goals on the app, and the quiet pride of building her own path, even with the exhaustion pulsing through her shoulders. That muggy July morning, Summer had been waiting for her passenger for exactly 6 minutes. She was parked in front of one of those monumental Bel Air mansions with Greek columns and 3 cars in the driveway, all with custom license plates. The sun blazed through the windshield, and she tugged down the brim of her hat. A simple black cap with Uber stitched in white to shield part of her face. The car's AC groaned on full blast, and still, a bead of sweat trickled from her forehead down to her neck. As she stared at the polished steel gates of house number 288, she couldn't help the automatic thought, the value of that garage alone could pay for my entire college tuition. The contrast was stark. She lived in Inglewood, in a small second-floor apartment in an old building where the elevator was often broken and the front gate creaked every time someone came in. It was the same neighborhood where she'd grown up, the daughter of Haitian immigrants, her mom still pulling double shifts at a laundromat, and her dad, before he passed, used to deliver newspapers in the early morning. Summer was proud of all of that, but sitting there in front of a mansion with a magazine-worthy lawn and sculpted facade felt like staring into a city from another planet. The memory hit fast. You could be in an air-conditioned office with a steady paycheck if you'd taken the internship. Her ex-boyfriend's voice echoed in her head, laced with judgment. But another voice quickly rose, sweeter and steadier. Sweetheart, the right path isn't always the easy one. Go where your heart knows how to walk. Her mother's voice, the one who, even exhausted, always encouraged her to study, always told her she was too small to dream small. Summer adjusted the rearview mirror, snapped her seatbelt into place, and looked herself in the eye. Red lips, steady brown eyes, the same raised chin as always. She was used to side eyes, colleagues, passengers, people who didn't understand how someone so pretty was still out driving. But she knew. She knew what she'd walked away from. A low-paying internship at an environmental consulting firm, where the supervisor treated interns like they were invisible, and she knew why she chose to be here, driving her own car, on her own schedule, making enough to keep up her night classes. Freedom came with a price, sure, but it was a price she was willing to pay. The car gave a slight brake at the corner, the muffled sound of tires on the hot Los Angeles asphalt announcing the start of another ride. Summer adjusted her sunglasses on her face while checking the name on the app. New passenger, pickup location, Bel Air. Yet another mansion that probably cost more than all the cars she'd driven in the past 2 years. Let's go, Summer, she murmured to herself, pulling the car into motion. She liked to repeat her own name softly when she needed to focus. There was something therapeutic about remembering who she was before the world could try to tell her. The radio played a soft lo-fi beat, the air conditioning battled the stubborn heat, and the lavender scent from the dashboard diffuser created a cozy bubble inside the car. This was her sanctuary, her job, her safe space, her stage. On the passenger seat, a small GoPro camera pointed discreetly at her. It was on as always. That was the secret behind her viral TikTok videos. The spontaneous advice, the funny comments, the honest musings about life as she drove through the city's luxurious streets. That's how she'd gained over 200,000 followers and the nickname she could no longer escape. The hot Uber girl. Summer never minded the nickname. In fact, she laughed whenever someone used it. She was beautiful and she knew it. Glowing brown skin, eyes the color of golden amber, curly hair tied up in a high, practical bun. But her beauty always came with an invisible warning. Don't be fooled. I'm a badass too. The GPS said she was just 1 block away. Summer discreetly turned off the camera, pulling a piece of gum from her bag before rounding the final corner. The mansion rose in front of her like a solid mirage, light stone facade, Automatic gates, towering palm trees lining the entrance like sentinels. Everything about it screamed, old money, power, silence. "This is the place," she said, shifting smoothly into reverse and stopping the car in front of the number shown in the app. She looked at the screen. Passenger, Elliot, premium ride, no set destination. She sighed and waited. Nothing. The gate remained closed. The app still said waiting for passenger, but no one appeared. Summer glanced at the clock. 2 minutes. 3. 5. "Oh no," she muttered, already reaching to cancel the ride. That's when the front door of the mansion opened silently. A man appeared at the top of the steps. He didn't hurry. He walked down slowly with confidence and a presence that made her adjust the rearview mirror instinctively. Summer watched him through the reflection, pretending not to look. Tall, broad shoulders, well-tailored dark grey suit, no tie. The top buttons of his white shirt undone in a way that looked intentionally casual. Dark brown hair combed back with precision. But it was his eyes that caught her off guard. Grey eyes, clear and intense at the same time. Eyes that had seen enough not to be surprised by much, almost. He opened the back door and got in without a word. Just sat down and buckled his seatbelt. Summer waited, expecting some kind of instruction. Silence. "Good afternoon," she said, keeping a professional tone. "Drive, please," he replied, his voice low, firm, like someone used to being obeyed. Summer raised an eyebrow but said nothing. She shifted into drive and pulled away calmly, the electric engine making almost no sound. Minutes passed. He said nothing, didn't look at his phone, didn't fidget, just watched her in the rearview mirror from time to time, like he was waiting for something. Summer couldn't take it anymore. "No destination, huh? Just a little ride through Bel Air?" He paused for a long moment before responding. "For now, yes." She smiled faintly, without showing teeth. "You know, the guys who say just a ride usually want to chat, but you're keeping it real quiet." The man let out a soft laugh, not mocking, not cold, just brief. "I'm not here to talk today, but I have to admit something. I know who you are." Summer frowned, glancing slightly back at him. "What do you mean?" "Not from the internet," he said quickly. "Though I do know you have a channel. I saw you at USC last week. You presented that project on green cities, urban mobility, and micro-ecological impact. Remember?" Summer felt a chill inside. "How do you know it was me?" "Your presentation was the most interesting of the night," he said, with a calm that didn't feel like flirting. "And your voice, it's hard to forget. Clear, direct. You spoke with conviction." She swallowed hard. She was used to compliments, but not like this. Not from a man who looked like he'd stepped out of a business magazine. Not from someone who watched her lecture and didn't follow her on TikTok just for her looks. "What do you do?" she asked, trying to sound casual. "Elliot Blake, CEO of Blake Systems." He paused. "Green tech, sustainable automation, smart cities." Summer went silent. She'd heard that name before, and she knew what it meant. The kind of man who got featured on Forbes before turning 40, who gave TED Talks and hosted charity dinners in homes like the one he just walked out of. "And why did you request this ride?" she asked, now with more resolve. "I wanted to see you again." Silence. She let out a dry laugh. "Oh, so that's it. The Millionaire CEO got curious about the hot Uber girl." "No. I got curious about the woman who talked about cities where the rich don't live with their own waste." "You said that, remember?" She turned to him for a second, her eyes sparking. "I remember, and I still believe it. Most rich people live in bubbles. This ride is just more proof." Elliot held her gaze. "And yet you agreed to drive out here." "Because it's my job," she said more firmly now. "I don't refuse rides out of prejudice, even when I know the person getting in my car probably never cleaned their own bathroom." Elliot looked away for the first time, turned his face to the window and was quiet for a few seconds. Touché. Summer looked straight ahead. The music had stopped. Only the sound of the car moving through Bel Air remained. "I can end the ride if you want," she said. "I'm not here to entertain anyone." He shook his head. "No." Keep going. And so she did. But inside her, something had already changed, and the silence between them wasn't the same anymore. The subtle buzz of the phone vibrating on the console made Summer glance away from the red light. The screen showed a new ride request: premium passenger, pickup location, Bel Air, again. She hesitated for a second before accepting. "Seriously?" she murmured, sliding her finger across the green button. The name that appeared next confirmed what she already suspected: Elliot. It was still early, late morning, light traffic. She had just finished a ride downtown and was about to take a break to grab something to eat, but seeing his name stirred up an unexpected restlessness. It wasn't fear, not exactly curiosity either. It was more like discomfort, like something had been left unresolved after their first ride. The destination wasn't listed in the system, but the pickup spot was the same: that enormous mansion with towering palm trees and a silent facade. In less than 20 minutes, she was parked in front of the gate again. This time, the gate was already slightly open. Elliot appeared quickly. No jacket, just a black button-up with the sleeves rolled to his elbows. The kind of outfit that fits well on a man who takes care of himself. Even from a distance, it was clear he'd either worked out or had a busy morning. Still, his posture remained composed, and the way he walked, calm steps, focused eyes, said more than any outfit could. He opened the front passenger door this time. "I thought you preferred the back seat," she said, not hiding her sarcastic tone. "Today, I want to talk to you like a person, not like a passenger," he replied, fastening his seatbelt and locking eyes with her. She sighed, pulled into the road, and headed toward the main street, still unsure of the destination. "So, where are we going today?" "There's a cafe near USC. Do you know Garden and Roast?" "I do. They've got a key lime pie that's worth the drive." "Perfect. Let's go then." Silence settled for a few moments, but it was different from before. It wasn't tense. It had weight, but also a sense of anticipation. "Do you usually call an Uber just to talk?" she asked, eyes fixed on the road. "I tend to do unusual things when I meet unusual people." She raised an eyebrow, not replying right away. "You're not the first rich guy to say that to me. Most don't last 5 minutes before showing what they really want." "And what do you think I want?" She smiled, a little more playfully now. "That's what I'm trying to figure out." He held her gaze for just long enough to make her swallow hard. There was no sleaze, but also no retreat. Elliot was the kind of man who took in silence like it could reveal the truth. "I want to work with you," he said finally. She laughed. "Now you're the one trying to break the ice." "I'm not joking, Summer." She stayed quiet. He continued. "When I saw you at USC, I thought you were just another student with good intentions. Then I heard you speak. Then I saw you driving for Uber. That's when I realized you live what you study." Her grip on the steering wheel tightened slightly. "I don't have time for motivational speeches. I live this because I don't have a choice. Uber pays the bills. School is my chance to get out of this cycle. That's it." "Exactly. Because you know what it's like to be out there. You see the city as it is, not how we simulate it in innovation labs." She stopped at a red light and slowly turned to him. "You want to hire me to what? Talk to the poor people in your billion-dollar project?" He didn't look away. "I want you to help design a new community mobility system. I want you to lead the pilot phase of a project. We're starting around Compton, then expanding to Inglewood, maybe even South Oakland. It's real investment, involving real people. And you're the only person I've met in recent years who truly understands both sides." She took a deep breath, turned back toward the road, and pulled forward as the light turned green. "I'm not a licensed engineer yet, not a project manager either. I've just got a few ideas and a ton of experience behind the wheel, and that's exactly what I need." The rest of the drive to the cafe was quiet. Her heart was beating in sync with the engine. This wasn't just another conversation anymore. It felt like a calling. They pulled up in front of Garden and Roast, a low-key place with ivy-covered walls and large glass windows. Elliot got out first, then opened her door like it was second nature. "I'm buying the coffee today," he said with a slight smile. She stepped out, tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear with a quick motion, and replied, Better than paying with 5 stars on the app, right? They went in. The atmosphere was calm, filled with the smell of fresh coffee, and baristas in aprons smiled easily. They sat in a more private corner where they could see the street without drawing attention. "You said something about leading a project. What does that involve exactly?" she asked after they ordered. "Field coordination, interviews with drivers, mapping critical routes, flow analysis, and of course, oversight of environmental and social impact." "And why me? You must know dozens of experts." "I do, but all of them talk about the streets. None of them live in them." She fell silent. Thought of her sister at home, the overdue electric bill, the backlog of college assignments. She also thought of the times people chuckled when she said she wanted to transform LA traffic. "And is there a salary?" she asked bluntly. "Yes, a monthly stipend above market average, and the freedom to keep studying." "What if I want to keep driving?" "Your time is yours. You decide." She crossed her arms. "Still sounds too good to be true." "You can doubt me, Summer, I get it. But this isn't charity, it's a partnership. I'm not doing you a favor. I want the best for this project, and you're the best person I've found." Their order arrived. Iced coffee with oat milk for her. Double espresso, no sugar for him. She picked up her cup, took a sip, and looked him straight in the eye. "Send me the full materials. I want to see what this project really looks like." He nodded, pulling a card from his pocket, handed it to her with a subtle, deliberate gesture. "You'll have it in your inbox by the end of the day." She took the card, slipped it into the side pocket of her hoodie, and stood up. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I've got 5 more rides before lunch. The algorithm doesn't wait." Elliot stood up too, stepping aside so she could pass. "Drive safe." "Always," she said, walking away without looking back. But as she headed back to her car, a part of her already knew the next ride wouldn't be like the others. The electronic gate closed behind her with a soft click, and Summer's car sped back toward the main road, slicing through the golden Los Angeles sun as it began to dip westward. Her hands were steady on the wheel, but her mind was racing a mile a minute. She hadn't looked at her phone since leaving the cafe with Elliot, but his card was still there, tucked into the side pocket of her hoodie, burning like a lit coal. There was something about that man, the way he spoke, the way he looked, the way he listened. That didn't match the other CEOs she had driven around in the back seat, but that wasn't enough to believe everything he said. At the next red light, she grabbed her phone and typed his name. Elliot Blake. The results popped up before she could even finish. Cover stories, awards, interviews, TED Talks, Forbes lists. He was everywhere. Founder of Blake Systems, the youngest CEO to receive international recognition for environmental impact solutions, and heir to a traditional East Coast family. Summer kept scrolling. She saw photos of him at philanthropic events, speaking at Harvard, leading environmental missions in African countries. Then she found an article he had written for the Urban Development Journal, Eco-Mobility as a Social Right. She clicked. She read the opening paragraphs carefully. It was well written, not the kind of technical jargon that only impresses industry insiders. It was direct to the point but with depth, the kind of analysis she herself hoped to write someday. And in the 3rd paragraph, there it was. What our urban projects lack is not technology, it's perspective. No one understands a city better than those who cross it every day just to survive. She stopped, read it again. That line could have come straight from her mouth. Had he copied something she said, or did he actually believe that? She pulled into a gas station parking spot, turned off the engine and stared at the dashboard. A slow irritation bubbled up, not at him, but at the situation. People had tried to use her image before, had praised her natural way, her inspiring story, just to draw attention and then drop her once the glow wore off. She picked up her phone again and opened her email. Still nothing. She went home. The apartment she shared with her sister was small, but clean, airy, and full of color. On the living room wall, childhood photos and motivational quotes taped up with clear adhesive. In the corner, a slightly wilted plant that Summer insisted on trying to save, just to prove that some things could still work out with time and care. "You're back already?" asked Mila, her younger sister, stepping out of the bedroom with a messy ponytail. "I'm back," Summer replied, tossing her keys on the counter and kicking her sneakers to the corner. Had a CEO in the car today. Again. What kind of CEO takes an Uber? The kind that doesn't want to be noticed, or the kind who wants to observe without being observed. Was he hot? Summer dropped her bag on the couch, rolling her eyes. He was, but that's not the point. It totally is. If you're bringing it up, it got to you. What's his name? Elliot Blake. Mila's eyes widened. No way. Like the Elliot Blake? Blake Systems? Tesla level? Elon Musk, but low-key? That's the one. Summer, you do know what this means, right? It means tomorrow morning I'll be turning the Uber app back on because we still haven't paid the internet bill this month. Come on. What did he want? He asked me to lead a project. Eco-friendly mobility in underserved communities. Said he needs someone who truly lives the city, who understands both sides. Mila went quiet for a moment. And, are you going? I don't know yet. I'm still trying to figure out if this is legit, or just another one of those stories that looks good on paper and turns out to be all marketing. The phone buzzed on the table. Summer grabbed it quickly. It was the email. Subject: Presentation Materials, Community Mobility Project. Inside there was a PDF attachment and a link to an interactive presentation. It was signed by him with a short message. As promised, let me know if you have any questions. Elliot. Summer opened the PDF. The project was real. Everything was there. Phase timelines, target areas, funding already secured, partnerships with universities, NGOs, transportation engineers. And on page 12, a specific section outlining the role proposed for her: Field Lead, South Los Angeles region, monthly stipend, for $200 plus benefits. She dropped the phone on the table like it was too hot to hold. He's serious, she whispered. Mila leaned in, reading over her shoulder. This could cover rent, tuition, and still leave enough for you to stop driving every day. Summer bit her lower lip. She hadn't asked for any of this. She hadn't gone looking for it. It just showed up. But why? And why now? I'm going to do a deep dive on him, she said, grabbing the laptop from the shelf. For hours, she plunged into interviews, articles, blogs, forums. She watched videos of him in high-risk zones, wearing boots and work clothes, hauling boxes in communities in Mexico and Kenya. She read positive comments, critical takes, investigative pieces. Nothing major, no scandals, no red flags that didn't line up with what he'd proposed. The last thing she opened was an image in one of the project reports. A photo of him with a field team at an old landfill site in Bogota. He was crouched next to the engineers, digging through waste with gloves on, sweat on his forehead, eyes serious. The caption read, "Sample collection for organic material reuse study in low-income areas." She zoomed in. It was unexpected, too real to be staged. She closed the laptop, leaned back on the couch, and crossed her arms. He's not just the guy in the $5,000 blazer. There's more to him. Mila gave her a sideways smile. You've got one foot in the project and the other on the brake, huh? Both feet are still on the brake. But maybe I'm starting the engine. Night crept in. The city's noise blended with the hum of the building. Summer got up, walked to the balcony, and looked out at the dimly lit street. Outside, cars drove by with low beams, a dog barked in the distance, and the warm smell of asphalt still lingered in the air. She pulled out her phone, opened contacts, and typed in the number from the card, created the name, Elliot Blake, Urban Project. Saved. She didn't text him, not yet, but for the first time she considered that maybe, just maybe, this man was actually seeing something beyond the hot Uber driver. The bus braked hard at the corner of Vermont and Jefferson. Summer held onto the overhead bar with one hand, her elbow pressing against the backpack slung over her shoulders. She got off at the next stop, crossed the street amid honking and other people's rush, and walked the 3 blocks to the building that housed USC's Environmental Studies Department. It was Thursday evening, and the campus was already beginning to empty out. Students were leaving in small groups, laughing, talking about exams, hauling backpacks with the typical end-of-semester exhaustion. Summer walked through the main gate with a steady stride, earbuds playing a soft instrumental playlist. She climbed the steps of the south wing, gave a quick nod to the security receptionist, and made her way down the hallway to room 209, where she had her urban waste management class. Professor Torres was already at the front, setting up the slides on the projector. He wore the same light blue linen shirt as always, glasses tilted at the tip of his nose, and a thermos of green tea on the desk. The class was small, about a dozen students, some still chewing on snacks, others connecting their laptops. Summer sat in the back as usual. She preferred to observe before speaking. She took out a notebook, pulled out a pen, and waited. As soon as the lights dimmed and the first slide appeared on the screen, she looked up. "Good evening, everyone. Before we begin, an important announcement," the professor said, his voice slow but steady. "Next week, we'll have a special guest lecture here on campus, as part of our Sustainable Cities program. The guest is Dr. Elliot Blake, founder of Blake Systems. I imagine many of you recognize the name. He recently published an important study on low-impact urban mobility. Highly recommended, especially for those working on projects in that area." Summer felt her body tense. The name, though expected, seemed to echo loudly in the room. She kept her eyes on the page, but her hand stopped writing. "The lecture will be held in the Environmental Engineering Auditorium, Wednesday at 6 p.m. free entry for all students. I suggest you don't miss it." Someone nearby muttered, "That guy's like Elon Musk, but with an ecological conscience." Another replied, "They say he doesn't go anywhere without security. He's even been on missions in war zones because of clean water issues." Summer took a deep breath, staying quiet. The class officially started, with the professor reviewing material from the previous week, but her mind was elsewhere. The coincidence was too much to ignore. Or maybe it wasn't a coincidence at all. After class, she waited until her classmates had left. The professor was packing up his materials when she approached the desk. "Professor, can I ask you a quick question?" "Of course, Summer, go ahead." "This lecture by Elliot Blake, did he reach out to the university?" Torres looked up over his glasses, surprised. "Actually, yes, he contacted me a few days ago, said he was interested in learning more about the projects being developed by students, especially those focused on mobility and waste management. He specifically mentioned your work, by the way." She felt her heart beat a little faster, but her voice stayed steady. "Do you know him?" "Not exactly," he replied, trying to sound casual. "He approached me after my presentation. We talked briefly, that's all." Torres nodded, satisfied. "Well, he seems genuinely interested. He even asked me to send over some of the student work to review in advance. I sent yours. I thought it was worth it. You're on the right path, Summer. Thank you." She left the room quickly, crossing the empty hallway to the staircase. Outside, the sky had already turned a deep lilac, the city breathing to the rhythm of lights beginning to flicker on. She headed toward the bus stop, but halfway there, decided she needed to walk, to breathe. She walked to the Expo Line station, earbuds off, her mind spinning from what she'd just learned. Elliot had reached out directly to the professor, had requested the student projects, had mentioned hers. And now he was part of the university's official program. She stopped in front of the station ticket booth, catching her reflection in the slightly fogged glass. She saw her own brown eyes, tired but alert. She was stepping into unfamiliar territory, a game of influence, expectation, and exposure that scared her, but also pulled her in. When she got home, Mila was watching a show with one earbud in. How was class? "Blake is giving a lecture next week." "At the university?" "Yeah, and he asked the professor for my project. Read it. Mentioned it before the lecture." Mila paused the show. "This is going far. He's clearly interested, Summer, and not just in your project." "I know." She went into her room, tossed her backpack on the chair, and sat on the bed. She grabbed her phone, opened WhatsApp, and scrolled to the recently saved contact, Elliot Blake, Urban Project. She thought for a few seconds, then started typing. "Dr. Blake, this is Summer Hayes. I received your material about the project. I have a few questions. Could we talk after your lecture next week?" She hit send before she could change her mind. Her phone buzzed less than a minute later. I'm glad to hear from you, Summer. Of course we can talk after the lecture. I appreciate the opportunity. See you then. She read the reply several times. The message was measured. No emojis, no casual tone. Professional. Not cold, not forced, just direct. Like him. She lay back on the bed, set her phone beside her and closed her eyes. Her thoughts spun in circles. The man who had stepped into her car was now stepping into her life in a systematic, quiet, and deliberate way. He didn't seem like someone who left loose ends. If he had decided to get closer, there was a reason. She just needed to figure out whether that reason was truly the project, or something she wasn't yet ready to face. Out on the balcony, the night air drifted into the room. The city wasn't sleeping, and neither was Summer. She knew she was about to stop being just a passenger, but where she was headed still depended on their next encounter. The main hallway of the engineering building was buzzing with unusual activity. Students hurried up and down the stairs, some wearing t-shirts from the Urban Sustainability Week event. Posters with Elliot Blake's photo were plastered on every wall. Dark suit, serious expression, white background with the Blake Systems logo in the bottom right corner. The lecture title was printed in bold black letters, Rewriting Mobility, From Technology to Community. Summer walked right past the banner at the entrance of the auditorium. She wore dark jeans, a white button-down shirt, and had her hair pulled back in a simple bun. She had tried to appear neutral, but the way her eyes scanned the room made it clear she wasn't just another attendee. She was there for two reasons, and neither of them was simply to hear another rich man talk. She entered just minutes before the lecture started and took one of the seats in the back, as she always did. From the still empty stage came the sounds of technicians adjusting the microphone and testing the slide projector. The room was packed. Students, professors, even some professionals from outside the university. The last arrivals squeezed into the aisles or stood along the walls. As the lights began to dim, a woman from the organizing committee stepped onto the stage and picked up the mic. Good evening, everyone. It is a great honor to welcome tonight one of the most relevant names in sustainable innovation in the United States. A civil engineer from MIT, PhD in urban planning from the University of Chicago, founder and CEO of Blake Systems, one of the most impactful companies in green solutions for the cities of the future. Please welcome Dr. Elliot Blake. The room erupted in applause, loud and sustained. Elliot appeared from the side of the stage with the same presence Summer already knew, steady, unhurried, focused. He wore a modern-cut blazer over a grey shirt, dark pants, and understated shoes. He didn't look like a traditional executive, more like a top-tier professor who commanded not just knowledge but also the room's attention. He walked to the center of the stage and offered a brief smile before beginning. Thank you for being here. I know it's the end of the day and many of you are already thinking about dinner, but I hope what we're about to discuss makes it worth your time. The opening lines drew a few light laughs. Elliot continued, alternating precise data with practical examples, field images, maps of urban transit systems, and clips from documentaries. He spoke clearly, avoiding unnecessary jargon. He referenced projects in Latin American cities, spoke about slums in Bogota, about informal transit systems in exclusion zones in São Paulo, and about abandoned neighborhoods in South Chicago. Then, almost as if by chance, an image appeared on the screen. A presentation clip in a USC auditorium, the university's logo in the background. The slide read, Community Gardens and Green Microtransit, the case of LA's emission-free zones, and the presenter was facing away from the camera. Summer felt her heart beat faster. This presentation was given right here by one of the most interesting students I've met this year, he said. Her proposal explores the integration of accessible, sustainable solutions, even for independent workers, like app-based drivers, delivery couriers, and others operating on the fringes of official systems. He didn't say her name, didn't point her out in the audience, but the reference was unmistakable. Summer swallowed hard and kept listening. At the end of the lecture, the applause was even louder. Some people stood, others rushed to the stage to snap photos or ask quick questions. Summer stayed seated for a few minutes, watching. She only stood when the room began to empty. She crossed the auditorium without hurrying and found Elliot near the side exit, now free from the crowd, talking with a professor. When he saw her, he ended the conversation with a nod and turned to her with a quiet smile. "I thought maybe you wouldn't come," he said, adjusting his blazer. "And miss the part where you quote an unnamed student," she replied, her tone a mix of irony and curiosity. "I respect people's privacy, and the real credit will come soon with the right project." She crossed her arms. "Then let's get to the point. I've got questions." "Perfect. There's a coffee shop nearby. We can walk." She nodded. They left the auditorium and walked down a side street to a small corner cafe. The place was modest, dimly lit, with only a few tables, discreet enough for her to feel at ease. Elliot ordered an espresso. Summer asked for iced hibiscus tea. They sat at a table by the window. "Your lecture was good," she began, "but that's not why I came. I want to really understand why you chose me. Out of so many experts, why an Uber driver?" "Because you see what they don't, and you talk to people they don't." She leaned her elbows on the table. "That sounds like a dangerous compliment, the kind that uses our lived experience as a diversity token." "That's not it. I don't want you on this project for your story. I want you for your ideas. You've got a viable, grounded proposal based on first-hand experience with urban transportation. And more than that, you have a critical mindset that my advisors don't." She was silent for a few seconds. "And if I join this project, what happens? Will they listen to me? Or will they use me as the face of a campaign and leave me in the waiting room afterward?" Elliot held her gaze. "You'll lead. You'll build your own field team. You'll test hypotheses, suggest adjustments. And if you want, we'll publish the findings with your name as first author. And what if I disagree with you? Even better. That's what I need. Someone who's not afraid to point out when I'm wrong, who'll tell me when I'm being blinded by my position. I already have too many people telling me I'm right." She gave a faint smile. "You know all of this sounds surreal, right?" "I do, but it's real. That's why I gave you all the documents up front. I didn't hide anything. Transparency, Summer. That's how I want this to work." She leaned back in her chair, arms crossed. "Okay, then here's one last question. If none of this were about sustainability or technology, if it were just you asking me to sit here, would you still have reached out?" He was quiet for a moment, then he answered without looking away. "I would have, but it would have just been a conversation. None of this would have come afterward. Because what brought me here was what you think, not just how you look." She took a deep breath, not sure if she fully believed it, but for the first time she wanted to believe. "I'll think about it, Elliot. I still don't give quick answers to things that could change my entire life. That's all I ask. Think it over, and let me know when you're ready." She finished her tea, stood up and grabbed her phone. "I'll text you. Until then." Until then. Outside, the night air was cooler. She walked back to the bus stop with a full mind and a steady stride. It wasn't a yes, not yet, but it wasn't a no anymore. The alarm vibrated on the nightstand before it even had a chance to ring. Summer reached out and turned off her phone automatically, without opening her eyes. The day hadn't truly begun, but the insomnia from the night before was already showing in the heaviness of her body. She rolled over, pushed off the blanket, and sat on the edge of the bed. The gray light slipping through the blinds gave away the cloudy morning in Los Angeles. She rubbed her face, took a deep breath, and sat still for a few seconds. Elliot's proposal was still echoing in her mind, like a persistent question mark. Leading an urban mobility project with a higher-than-average stipend and the freedom to act independently sounded almost too good to be true, but deep down, it wasn't the fear of saying yes that weighed the most. It was the fear of not belonging. She got up slowly, walked to the kitchen, and put some water on to boil. The smell of instant coffee mixed with the morning silence had been part of her routine for years. While waiting, she grabbed her phone, opened the email with the project PDF, and scrolled again to the section describing the role. Field Lead, South Los Angeles Region. A nice title, even bigger responsibility. "You going?" asked Mila, appearing in the doorway with messy hair and half-closed eyes. Summer turned her back, grabbed 2 mugs, and poured the coffee. "Still thinking about it?" "You've been thinking for days. Because it's not just about saying yes, it's about surviving what comes after. You want to know if you'll be treated like an equal, or if I'll just be another feel-good story to impress investors. Mila sat down at the table, crossed her arms and looked at her firmly. You've proven 1,000 times that you understand cities better than a lot of guys in suits. You don't need to fit in anywhere, Summer. You build your own space. Summer gave a small smile. She didn't say anything, but her sister was right. That afternoon, she decided to confirm her attendance at the project onboarding meeting scheduled for the next day. It would be the first meeting with the core team from Blake Systems. No audience, no cameras, just her, Elliot, and the names behind that ambitious proposal. It was the first step outside her comfort zone, and she knew it. The next morning, she put on black dress pants, a light linen blouse, clean white sneakers, and tied her hair back with a simple scarf. She wanted to look professional, but still like herself. She took the bus to the Blake Systems building in downtown Los Angeles. The building was glass and steel, sleek and modern, but not flashy. Discreet, functional, straightforward, just like Elliot. At the reception, she was greeted by a young woman with a mechanical smile who led her up to the 18th floor. The conference room had floor-to-ceiling windows, a light wood oval table and minimalist chairs. There were 4 people in the room when she entered. "Summer Hayes?" asked a middle-aged man with graying hair and a skeptical look. "I'm Thomas Black, Director of Urban Operations." She shook his hand firmly. Then she introduced herself to 2 other women, a data engineer named Lydia and an economist named Renata, both dressed in neutral tones, their expressions curious but guarded. No one really smiled. Elliot came in last, no blazer, sleeves rolled up, a folder under his arm. When he saw Summer, he gave a slight nod and smile, but kept things formal in front of the others. "Good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here. Let's get straight to the point," he said, stepping to the front of the table. He started by explaining the project's goals, impact targets, implementation phases, and everyone's role. When he got to Summer's part, he pointed directly at her. "Summer will be our field lead. She'll coordinate route testing, interview drivers, map critical points, gather data, and propose real-world solutions based on how the streets are actually used. None of us here have the lived experience she has with the city, and that's what will make the difference." Thomas made a soft noise in his throat, like he wanted to interrupt. Elliot looked at him for a second. "Something to add, Thomas?" "Just, curious. Has she finished her degree?" Summer responded before Elliot could. "Not yet. I'm studying environmental management at USC, final year. I've been working in urban transportation for 5 years, and I've used the public system daily since I was 15. Thomas slowly nodded, like someone processing information they didn't really like. Lydia spoke up. "Have you worked with data modeling before?" "Not with advanced software, but I do daily demand analysis reports for driver co-ops. And I also built a manual database for my academic project." Renata was jotting something down on a tablet. "Your project? Is it the one with gardens connected to microtransport?" "That's the one. It started as an experiment in Watts. Now we have 2 fixed routes and a partnership with an organic warehouse." Silence hung in the air for a few seconds. Elliot took control of the meeting again, showing slides with projections and maps. At the end of the presentation, he gathered the materials and opened the floor for questions. "Well, now it's your turn. The idea is to start the pilot in 4 weeks. Summer, you'll need to build a lean but effective team. I want 3 names by next Monday." She nodded. "Will there be technical support?" "Full support. You choose the report format, field methodology, and pace, but you'll need to present monthly results with impact and performance indicators." "And decision-making autonomy?" Elliot paused, thought for a moment. "Your autonomy will match your delivery. I won't micromanage, but I will hold you accountable." She liked that answer. As the meeting ended, Thomas was the only one who didn't say a kind goodbye. Lydia and Renata, on the other hand, quietly came over. "If you need help with the data side, I can share some templates," Lydia offered. "And I can help with the economics if you want to run cost scenarios," added Renata. Summer thanked them. She realized that even if full acceptance wasn't there yet, the wall already had cracks. Outside on the sidewalk, she took a deep breath. She untied the scarf from her hair, let her curls down, and turned on her phone. No new messages. But in that moment, it didn't matter. For the first time, she was on the other side of the table. And she had a voice. The city kept pulsing around her. But now, she wasn't just another passenger. She was finally starting to drive her own future. "Watch out for the extension cord," Summer warned, pointing with her hand as she walked quickly through the makeshift hallway of the warehouse. The space, once an old city storage facility in South Los Angeles, was now beginning to transform into the operations hub for the pilot phase of the Community Mobility Project. There wasn't any permanent furniture yet, but folding tables held computers, maps were taped to the walls, and a whiteboard displayed handwritten notes. She had written them all herself. "The data team gets here in 30 minutes, said Renata, walking in through the side door with a tablet in hand. "Lydia asked me to remind you about the meeting with the Watts logistics partner at 3. "I know. I just need to finish finalizing the names for Route B first," Summer replied, already sitting down at a table to go over the papers. There was something about the rhythm of the past few days that made her feel different. It wasn't just the amount of work. It was the kind of work. For the first time, decisions were going through her. Ideas didn't have to be filtered through anyone else. And even in the midst of skeptical looks and unexpected changes, she felt a new version of herself emerging, more focused, more certain. On the wall in front of her was a printed map of the South LA region, marked up with colorful pens. Blue lines indicated high-traffic routes, red marked urban choke points. Yellow showed zones of social vulnerability. All of it cross-referenced with data she and her team had collected over the past week. Interviews with drivers, conversations with residents, analyses of peak hours and public transportation availability. "Summer, the transport folks are here," announced an intern in a yellow vest. "They're waiting in the lobby." She stood up immediately. "Give me 5 minutes. I'll be right there." She grabbed her badge, clipped it around her neck, and took a deep breath before leaving the room. The makeshift lobby smelled of fresh paint and burnt coffee. 3 men and 1 woman were seated, all representatives from the local alternative transportation cooperative. Summer approached with a steady smile. "Good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming. Shall we head to the meeting room? We've got a few routes to validate together." During the meeting, she led the presentation with confidence, detailing each point, answering questions and jotting down critiques. She never hesitated. She knew exactly what she was doing. Every line drawn on that map came from a conversation she had herself, from a street she had walked personally. The team listened, proposed changes, and in the end, one of the cooperative leaders shook her hand firmly. "It's been a while since we've seen someone who understands our side without looking down on us." She thanked him, hiding her pride behind a professional expression. After the representatives left, Elliot came in through the side door. "I was listening from outside," he said. "You led that better than I would have. I just did what needed to be done. And you did it with excellence." She looked away for a second, pretending to shuffle some papers. "How are the projections?" she asked. "The cost simulations are looking good. Route A still needs more tweaks because of the overlap with city lines, but the projected impact is already twice what we expected at the beginning." Elliot nodded, reviewing the data on the tablet she handed him. "Have you thought about presenting these results at the Chicago conference next semester? You want to put me on a stage now. I want to show the project, and that means showing who's leading it. Isn't it a little early for that? You're doing better than any consultant I've ever hired, and you've got more authority than a lot of people who've been part of that conference for years." She placed both hands on the table, deep in thought. "If I agree to this, it won't just be a project anymore, it'll be exposure, expectations, and I don't know if I'm ready for that. Nobody is, but if you build your own foundation, you can carry the weight of what you raise." They locked eyes for a moment longer than necessary. Neither of them looked away right away. "I'll think about it," she said finally. "That's a start." Later that afternoon, Summer returned to the main room, where the rest of the team was still typing up reports. She opened her laptop and began typing the suggested names for the next wave of regional leadership. People from the community, people who knew the problem firsthand, retired taxi drivers, delivery workers, mothers who coordinated community school transport networks. She didn't want the project to become just another showcase of good intentions. She wanted it to work, to be replicable, to serve as a model for other cities, for other realities. When she finished the list, she walked to the whiteboard and wrote at the top, "Mobility is access," and underneath in smaller letters, "And access is dignity." The next morning she went to the USC campus. She needed to pick up a signed document from Professor Torres. He greeted her with a wide smile. "Heard you're running the operation like a pro. Still tripping here and there, but moving forward. I'm happy to see you in this role. You've earned it." She thanked him, and on her way back, she passed a group of students chatting on the stairs. One girl pointed and whispered something to her friend. "That's her, the hot Uber girl from Blake's project." Summer heard it, but kept walking. The nickname didn't bother her anymore, because now, finally, it wasn't the whole story they were telling about her. It was just one part of a bigger story, a story she was writing herself. "Put that seedling in the shade, or it'll burn before it takes root," said Summer, crouched in the freshly turned soil, her hands covered in black gloves. The boy nodded and ran over to the cart where the plants were. Behind her, two teenagers laughed as they uncoiled the hose. In the corner of the greenhouse, an older woman wearing a floral fabric apron was organizing trays of hand-labeled seeds. It was the opening day of Florence's new community greenhouse, built as part of the pilot project led by Summer and funded by Blake Systems. A space that brought together transportation and urban food production, where gardens and micro-distribution worked side by side. She stood up, wiped her forehead with her forearm, and looked around. The once abandoned lot was now alive. Fertile soil, people working, electric bikes with sustainable storage bins waiting to carry harvests to small markets, support homes, and local mom-run co-ops. All of it was part of the plan, and all of it had started from a sketch she once scribbled in an old notebook on a crowded bus. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled off one glove with her teeth, grabbed the phone, and checked the screen. Elliot Blake. She took a deep breath before answering. "Hey, I'm out front. Brought what I promised." "You're gonna mess up your shoes." "I accepted that when I parked the car." She hung up, laughing to herself. She took off the gloves, wiped her hands on the cloth tied around her waist, and walked toward the entrance of the greenhouse. Elliot stood by the gate, sleeves of his dress shirt rolled up, dark jeans and a pair of boots that clearly didn't belong in a boardroom. In one hand, he held a wooden box. In the other, a thermos. "I brought coffee. And the tools you asked for." "Tools and caffeine, you're learning fast. I adapt to the soil." She opened the gate and he stepped inside, taking in the space with interest. "It's even more beautiful than I imagined. Because it's not just beautiful. It works. First harvest is in 3 weeks. And the impact data? Lydia's finishing the charts today, but alternative transportation use tripled last week, and food distribution saved 28% in travel time. That's impressive. The best part isn't in the numbers, Elliot. It's in the people, the way they've taken ownership of this like it's theirs. Because it is." He nodded, walking beside her between the garden beds. "Do you still drive?" "Now and then, during off hours, more out of habit than need." "I thought you'd stopped." "No, it's my way of not forgetting where I came from." They stopped in front of one of the larger beds. She pointed to a freshly planted flower in the center. "I picked that one. Chamomile. Any special reason?" "It's tough. Grows even in poor soil. And still it soothes." "I like that." Elliot set the box down, opened it, and pulled out a large envelope. "This is the official invite for the Chicago conference. Your presentation got accepted. Title: Effective Infrastructure and Social Transport, the South LA Case." She took the envelope, studying it in silence. "This scares me more than I'd like to admit. You won't be alone. But it'll be my face on the screen. And that's exactly what the world needs to see." She tucked the envelope into her backpack and walked back with him to the rest area under the tarp. They sat on makeshift wooden benches, and Elliot poured coffee into thermal cups. "You know, when I got in your car that day, I wasn't expecting anything more than a driver. I wasn't expecting a CEO having an existential crisis in my back seat either. He chuckled quietly. And now? Now you're the guy who brings me coffee and carries boxes. Very useful, actually. And you're the woman who turned theory into reality in less than 2 months. She took a sip of coffee, still warm, and looked at him. Did you really think it would work? I believed in you, that was enough. A comfortable silence settled between them. In the distance, kids kept digging in the dirt. The woman in the apron clapped her hands to get their attention, and the sun was slowly dipping toward the horizon. What about after Chicago? Elliot asked. I'll figure it out. I want to make sure things are running smoothly here first. Maybe expand to Watts, then Inglewood, but I want to do it at the pace of the people, not ours. He watched her for a moment. There was something in her eyes, a mix of strength and calm. Like the flower she'd planted. There's something I want to ask you, he said. Go ahead. If you could plant anything in this project right now, with everything you know, what would you choose? She thought for a moment, looked around, feeling the light breeze sway the leaves in the greenhouse. That flower no one believed could bloom here. He smiled, didn't say a word, just stood up, held out his hand to her and said, Then let's plant it. And that evening, between the concrete of the city and the reborn green of what it meant to you. Neglect, remember to hit the like and subscribe buttons. Some seeds don't. This is really important for the channel. But really important to believe. And when no one else if you're ready for another story of love and hope, click the first card or the second one to watch the full playlist. See you there.